Welcome to everybody to the Footy Rambles. Thank you so much for joining us with myself, the host, Jonathan Keith, Johnny, whichever one you fancy. And then, as always, my co-host, the guy that knows more about football than me. That doesn't say too much, to be fair. Sorry about that, mate. But it's, of course, Callum Costello. How you doing, sir? You well?
Yeah, good, thank you. Not bad. Good day of football.
It was a wonderful day of football today. I'm going to start off by apologising to the millions of listeners that we do have. I haven't been able to watch as much of football as I would want to this weekend, simply because I've been at a wedding, I have been poorly, I've been on daddy daycare for half days, full days, etc. Okay, maybe not full days, that's a bit harsh, but half a day. It's just not been a weekend full of football like it sometimes is. So, Callum, I would say, as always, to be fair, you're going to be carrying the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, beauty and the brains, really.
Well, that's debatable. Let's put it out there. That's a poll for another time, isn't it, though? So let's get straight into it, though. We're going to start with one of the games today, and of course it is West Ham and Manchester United. So it's obviously West Ham 1, Man United 2, goals from Benrahma, Ronaldo and Lingard. There was, of course, a penalty save as well from De Gea, which was actually a good penalty, but it was an outstanding save. But Callum, give us your analysis.
Yeah, I've actually done a match report on this game, so I was writing my article from the start of the game to the finish. So I was actually quite intensely into it. The first half was a bit back and forth. Both teams had a bit of a go at each other, and then it was just Benrahma who managed to. It was a big deflection, but he scored. It was going to the top right corner. It wrong-footed De Gea to the left corner, and it came from Bowen, the assist, because they were without Antonio, and you could kind of tell a bit, but Bowen was covering that middle part for Antonio, and he'd done well, caused a lot of problems. And yeah, West Ham scored the first goal, took the lead, and then 5 minutes later, who else but Cristiano Ronaldo to score? It was a good ball by Bruno.
I must say, the shot that he initially had would have been a cheeky goal, but through Ronaldo's style, he put in his own deflection, didn't he? Which was it was a poacher's goal, quite simply. But you know what? The goals rack up for him for that reason. What I must say was disappointing was none of the defenders reacted to it whatsoever.
No, well, that's the thing as well. I noticed that with his goal against Newcastle, he is the quickest reactor to anything like that. He was running to score the rebound in the Newcastle game before the Newcastle defenders even knew what was going on. So he's done it again. He was hot on his own rebound, and he scored. And that's 3 in 2 games and 4 in 3, including Europe. So he's on fire for United. And he should have had a penalty towards the end, which we'll get onto in a second. But that was that for the first half. It was quite even. I mean, Man United had 7 shots on target in the first half, which I think is the most shots on target for a Premier League team in one half, but they weren't leading, which I think is kind of telling towards their attacking prowess now, but they're still vulnerable. And I think they do lose a lot of midfield battles, which brings the other team on. Fred and McTominay today were back in the pivot, and West Ham could take advantage of that. But then the second half came around, and I was doing the match report, and I didn't have to report anything for quite a while. There was nothing going on until Yarmolenko came on, a few attacks for West Ham, and then Man United made their substitutions, brought on Sancho and Lingard, and then Matic came on, and I thought, Matic is a bit defensive. But it was for Fred, so it was kind of like for like. And then he set up Lingard in the 89th minute, let's
have a quick appreciation post for that as well. Great goal. Didn't celebrate because he's got so much respect for them. They helped his career to be reignited, if you like. And I think it's fair to say a lot of people will have been surprised that he didn't move there permanently, myself included. But outstanding goal. Great goal.
Yeah, great goal, worthy of winning a match as well. And he didn't want to celebrate, but Ronaldo and Fernandes were forcing him into the crowd. So that's the kind of desire they want from their teammates as well, as someone to just give their all to the Man United fans, even though sometimes they don't give their all to Lingard. But then what it was in the last 5 minutes, the stoppage time after that was just carnage. West Ham should have probably had a penalty before things kind of kicked into gear. I think Souček was fouled by Wan-Bissaka, and then it got given as a foul against Souček. So then it looked like Ronaldo was fouled by Kufal. It was a bit soft, but in the terms of a foul, it did look like a foul. So I'm not too sure if that was a definite foul, but I think that was the ref then going, okay, I've not given one, so I won't give the other.
Yeah.
And then Ronaldo flew past Kurt Zouma. Zouma puts his hand into Ronaldo's back. So that's when Ronaldo starts falling and then just slices across Ronaldo, doesn't touch the ball. As stonewall a penalty as I've ever seen in my life. And the referee just waves play on. West Ham go up the other end. Yarmolenko puts a cross in. Shaw puts his hand out. Penalty.
Might as well have been up there, you know. It was.
It's definitely a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, there was no arguments from Shaw because, well, quite frankly, it was That's the thing. It's to keep yourself balanced. It's not in a natural position, but at the same time, it was right out of his side. You know, he needs to take a bit of a leaf out of the Chelsea handbook by the sounds of it, where all the hands are behind the back when they're in the penalty box. And to be fair, one of those situations where it just needed to happen. But hey ho, and then like we say, the penalty decision went obviously to West Ham after a quick VAR check, and you just think to yourself, well, if the Kurt Zouma incident wasn't, you know, how was that not VAR checked?
Well, exactly. It didn't even get checked by VAR. It didn't even sniff it, which for me is just outrageous because he didn't touch the ball in the slightest and he just chopped Ronaldo. It was a few instances. I think there was a few instances where Man United could have had a penalty, and that was the most stonewall. But then, yeah, West Ham had their penalty, right? And I don't know if you watched this, but Mark Noble got subbed on to take the penalty. Got subbed on for Jared Bowen, I think it was.
No, I didn't see that, but that's just hilarious.
Yeah, so there you go. So Mark Noble wasn't on the pitch. They get a penalty in the 93rd, 4th minute, and then Mark Noble gets subbed on to take the penalty because he scored 10 in his last 10. Puts the ball down, steps up, misses the penalty.
Lol. Anyway, there's nothing else to say. I mean, to be fair, like I say, it was probably quite. It was an easy height. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It wasn't exactly Harry Kane-esque where he buries it into one of the corners or, you know, nothing like that. He made himself very obvious where he was going to stick the ball. And that's the thing, you know, De Gea was given that opportunity to then dive to that side. And it was so straightforward, to be fair. Whether he was relying on more power, I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, I think it was just very England-esque of the bringing players on in the last minute, fresh with all the pressure in the world and not having even jogged. That's the only time he touched the ball during that whole game. And I don't think it's much of a coincidence that he scored 10 in 10 penalties and then missed the one that he's come on fresh for. He's 34 years old as well. Like he's retiring this season.
Yeah.
So just a bizarre decision. And Moyes defended it afterwards saying, look at his penalty record. But I just think like stick Declan Rice on it or
so this is what I was going to ask you. If you're the manager, what would you do in that situation? Would you have somebody out there who's an experienced striker, Declan Rice, club captain, etc. these days? Would you have him step up to take the penalty, knowing that the pressure of the captaincy is already on his shoulders, and therefore, you know, he needs, you know, he should be able to deal with this type of pressure? Is what I'm getting at. Would you have left it as something like that instead?
Yeah, definitely. Like there's no way those players have put their all into that game, and then you're just going to have Mark Noble come on to steal all the glory anyway, for one, and for two, just all that pressure on Mark Noble as well. It was just unnecessary. I would have definitely had one of the players on the pitch take it, whether it was Yarmolenko or Declan Rice or Jared Bowen. I think it undermines a lot of the players. Like, how bad can their penalties really be to have to do that? Yes. And then it's just ended up looking stupid anyway.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think Moyes is a great manager, and obviously the fact that they got to where they were last year. But I think, tactically he's probably gotten that one unfortunately wrong. But never mind. They will. I don't doubt that they're going to have a very good season. So anyway, we'll move on from there. That's probably one of the tougher games that they're going to have this year, especially with Ronaldo firing Man United. Let's move on. Liverpool Palace. So Liverpool 3. Palace 0. The goals coming from Sadio Mane in the 43rd, Salah in the 78th. I think that's definitely made a few fantasy football players, FPL players smile. Certainly myself, because I needed the points. And then Naby Keita in the 89th. So one assist, Virgil van Dijk. So what are we saying about the game?
Wow. I mean, Naby Keita's goal was incredible, by the way. You need to look it up if you haven't seen it. It was an absolute pinger of a volley, just absolutely
So give you a minute.
You are.
So do you want me to give you a moment just watching that? Yeah.
Yeah, please. It was a great goal. But the thing that struck me was Liverpool looked great again, of course. But so the Palace looked okay. They had the early chances. They could have had a penalty.
Yeah.
They looked okay. It was a 3-0 scoreline, but it was the typical kind of Liverpool 3-0 scoreline this season where they're just too good. Even though the team are quite... Yeah, and even though the other team are quite good, yeah, exactly. I expect Liverpool to be putting these teams away, and they did. But there was a miss of the season from Jota, and I don't quite know how he's missed it, but he's in my fantasy team and he's ruined my life. And
Rangers scored by the looks of it as well. Let's not kid ourselves. This week, you've not had a great one.
Hold on, I've had the most points in all my leagues. You haven't checked the fantasy league recently either.
Let's stick to what we're talking about. I'm just stating the point,
We'll get back to that. We'll do a fantasy league podcast.
I'll give you that. You've scored 65 now. Oh no, 68 now. It's just updated itself, and I'm on 67. I've had a reasonable one. Anyway,
that's all right.
Liverpool and Palace, crack on.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. And I think Raderveld was out of position for 2 of the Liverpool goals, so there was a few defensive errors for them, but I'm not too worried about Palace, and Liverpool look good. I just want to give a special shout out to James Milner, there was some stats shown that he was number 1 for the passes, number 1 most touches, most sprints in the pitch during the game. He had a lot of number 1 for, I think there was some fitness stats and everything like that. He was number 1 for all of them, and I believe he's 36, and he was covering at right back for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and it's just an unbelievable pro, just a seasoned pro. And when you look at the lineup, neither Trent or Robertson started, and you think, okay, Tsimikas has played really well, so that's okay. But Milner at right back, is he going to get exposed by Zaha? No, and he just covered himself in glory, and it was.
So here's one for you. Sorry to interrupt. Would you rather see Milner or Henderson in the England squad?
This is dangerous territory with Liverpool fan listeners.
Well, they're both on the same team, aren't they? Ultimately, so but for me, it's a case of actually Milner he's so versatile. Now, don't get me wrong. He's played in so many different. He's almost like a modern day Phil Neville. Excuse me, where he can be any position. But for me, he's always been a great defensive midfielder. Now, I think the combination of, and we are massively digressing here, but for me, I see James Milner doing, so much more for a team than Henderson personally.
Yeah, I mean, well, like for England though, I don't see Henderson ever starting an important game really for us. I see him coming on and seeing it out like he did during the Euros. But it would be the same for Milner. I think he would just be around to cover positions, right back, midfield, and bits like that.
You're quite right, but I think he's just got a bit more about him. We've just been talking about his stats and things like that, and for me, there's just a bit more about him. But anyway, that's a conversation topic for another time. Let's move on very briefly to Villa versus Everton. So I think it's fair to say it was an unexpected scoreline, but at the same time, one that absolutely throws it open, doesn't it? So I'll tell you where the goals came from. Matty Cash in the 66th. Then Lucas Digne got the only goal for Everton. Unfortunately, it was an own goal. And then Leon Bailey, who had a relatively good game as well, got his goal in the 75th. 2 assists, one from Douglas Luiz and one from Danny Ings. Obviously, Danny Ings there showing his worth as the guy that's coming in from for quite big money, I think it's fair to say, within the Villa camp. So, what are your thoughts on this game? How did it look?
I watched it, and there's a few points that are very important. Everton had a lot of injuries. They already had Calvert-Lewin out, and then yesterday they lost Pickford, Richarlison, and Seamus Coleman, which was a struggle at right back for them because they're already struggling at right back. If my uncles are listening, Everton season ticket holders, I did tell them they should sign Matty Cash from Forest a few years ago. They laughed at me, and he scored his first goal in Villa colours in the 66th minute. It was a great goal, and I'm so proud to have seen him score his first Premier League goal. I'm really happy for him because that's what he wanted, Premier League football. And he started off the scoring. And what you need to know here is Leon Bailey came on. He played 21 minutes of football. He came on around the 60-minute mark. He came on. He got the assist for Dini's own goal. So it was his corner that Dini headed him. And then he scored. And then he got booked for taking his top off. And then he went off injured. So he came on, 20 minutes, goal assist and a yellow card. And that was it.
I mean, there's levels of efficiency, isn't there? Let's be honest.
Real levels, and he's a cult hero now. I've got some Villa fans on my Twitter, and they absolutely loved him, and he looked incredible. Like, he changed the game, and the assist from Ings as well. Oh, it was an outside of the boot, lofted ball through from, I think, inside his own half, and Leon Bailey just finished it off, and it was incredible. And Dino had a nightmare 5 minutes. It was him who let Cash past him to score. He just whizzed past him. He scored the own goal. That corner came from a Matty Cash cross as well. So it was just 20 minutes of just great play by Cash and Bailey and a bit of a nightmare for Dino. But yeah, like you said, a bit of an unexpected scoreline overall. But with Everton's injuries, I think that's where it's come from. And they just looked a bit out of place. Ben Godfrey was covering at right back when he's a centre half, and they didn't really have a striker. Salomon Rondon was quiet, and then he came off, and I think they were alternating between the wingers. So I'm sure they'll come back to strength after they've got their full roster.
So the issue that I have with Everton is they want to be in the big, the top six, if you like. They want to be in those European spots. Now, we saw it for great periods of last season where Liverpool, their depth in squad wasn't great at all, but they still found a way of getting into the top four. Everton need to do the same if they want to be that club that's in Europe, quite honestly. And yeah, they might have injuries, but at the same time, they need to find a way of beating teams like Villa, which, no, absolutely no disrespect to Villa, but Everton you would typically see them finishing higher up. You would envision when the league starts, Everton would be higher up in the league than Villa. It happened last season, for example, I believe. I think Villa finished in the bottom half, did they not? Or am I mistaken there?
I don't think they did. No, I can't remember.
I really can't remember off the top of my head.
I think I know Everton finished 10th, just behind Leeds and 9th. I actually can't remember. It might have been Villa might have been in the bottom half. I'm not too sure, actually. Actually, I think they might have been. So, yeah, 7th. Yeah, I think Villa might have been in the bottom half, actually. I think they just looked good last season with Jack Grealish. Yeah, I think they were, actually. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think that you would typically expect Villa to finish above Everton, but they've only just come into the Premier League, and the way they're building a team with that Jack Grealish money, I think they'll get stronger and stronger. Oh, really? So it wasn't that
in 11th.
So they weren't that far away from each other. But I think, yeah, I think they're both two teams that are looking to get stronger and I think if Everton do, I mean, it's a big amount to have Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, Seamus Coleman, and Pickford out all at the same time. And Villa just got Martinez and Buendia back, so they were differing a little bit in fortunes. But yeah, like you say, they need to grind out results as well. It looked like it was going that way where they were going to grind out a point, but then Villa just turned it on for 10, 15 minutes and there was no way back for Everton, really.
Right, well, let's move on, and very swiftly, let's give ourselves 20 seconds to talk about the City-Southampton game. Not great.
Boring. And City had one shot on target, which isn't an associated statistic with them. I think the main key point was Walker committed a foul, much like the one on Ronaldo today, but it was kind of stood up. He hooked his leg around him, fouled the player, and got sent off, and it was a penalty. And as he was walking off and kind of debating it, the referee went to the monitor and overturned his decision. And it was, I'm pretty sure, he didn't even give a penalty. So he overturned the red card, he overturned the penalty and waved play on. It was a stonewall penalty, not a red card. That was correct not to give a red card. It was strange that he did in the first place, but he didn't even give a penalty. It was a stonewall decision. So we're still seeing bits of VAR that are just baffling, like even the Ronaldo foul before. Like, it's just what are you doing?
Not quite adding up, is it? Well, like I said, let's move swiftly on to a team that are trying to really put a stamp on the fact that they come up this season. Wolves 0, Brentford 2. Lots and lots of yellows and reds in this one. Well, one red to Baptiste, obviously, who plays for Wolves, but Ivan Toney from a penalty, and I'm going to get his name wrong, but Brian Mbemu. Go on, tell me I've got that one right.
You got it wrong, and Baptiste plays for Brentford as well, not Wolves.
Well, who did I say?
You said Baptiste, who obviously plays for Wolves.
Oh, yeah, obviously Brentford. Got that completely the wrong way around. Sorry, something just popped up on the screen that really confused me for a second. So, yeah, anyway, very nice of... anyway, thank you for correcting me. You know, I've just done it again there. Brentford. That's right. The 2 goal scorers were from Brentford because obviously they scored 2 and Wolves didn't score. Go on. I know you've got a few things that you want to go into this. Ivan Toney had a bit of a worldie, didn't he?
Oh, he's an incredible. He's becoming a real pro striker. My biggest mistake was taking him out of my fantasy team. I saw that he was doing, I know, everything that a striker should: hold up play and creating chances. And I thought, he's creating more chances than he's taking. And last week, Mbeumo missed a lot of chances Toney gave to him. So I thought I'd take him out. But then, of course, he should have had a hat-trick. Well, he shouldn't have had a hat-trick. 2 of his goals were disallowed. One was a handball. One was offside. Obviously, the linesman just didn't raise the flag, even though it was so obviously offside. But yeah, he scored. He took away his penalty, and then shortly after, he laid one on a plate to Mbeumo, who did put it away this time. And then Brentford just looked comfortable, and Baptiste got a stupid red card in the 64th minute. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, you've obviously lost your head at that point, haven't you? And it's not great. It's not great at all. You need to. Someone obviously needed to take him to one side and just say, okay, just give yourself a minute.
Yeah, it's the same as the Tanganga and the Antonio situation. Like, you just need to. It was a bad challenge, the first one, and then the second one was just a rugby tackle, and it was in his own half that he didn't need to do. It was just stupid. Like, your team's 2-0 up. Someone's running away from your own half, and you want to try and rugby tackle him when you've just got a yellow card. Just no point. But Brentford looked comfortable, and I see them. Yeah, I think I had them at 14 for something in my predictions, and I safely see them doing that, if not higher.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Well, let's again go very swiftly on, and I mean, I want to spend about 10 seconds on this one. Burnley and Arsenal. You know what? I'll give Odegaard his dues. It was a good free kick.
It was, but Arsenal were boring, uninspiring. Burnley had more shots, and let's move to the next game.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, on to a game that had, it's fair to say, 4 times as many goals. In Norwich 1, Watford 3. A very good game indeed for Watford. Really turned up, which is always nice to see, again, from a promoted team. So, it's loading up at the moment. So, I know that you're very... did you want to go into too much about this game? Because on the scoreline, it flatters maybe the game.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, I don't want to spend all my life on 2 teams that are probably going to get relegated. But, I mean, Emmanuel, well, they probably, I mean, Watford might not. I had higher hopes for Norwich, but they just looked lacklustre yesterday. Emmanuel Dennis looked really good. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, Emmanuel Dennis looked really good yesterday. He got a good goal, good headed goal, and he put a ball through to Sarr that he couldn't quite put away, but it was a spectacular ball. And then Sarr scored 2 goals, looked awesome, too good for Watford. Probably will get purchased in the summer when they go down. Surprised that he didn't already. There was a shocker from McLean for one of Sarr's goal, and Pukki's back on the goal, so he'll be interesting to keep an eye out for. Because I think Norwich...
No, go on, finish what you were going to say.
No, I was just going to say, I think Norwich have got a good few fixtures coming up, so they might have opportunities to get back in the goals, but Watford at home, 3-1, shouldn't really be losing that heavily to them, so...
I was literally about to say with Sarr, and you kind of glanced through it quite nicely there with the fact that you were surprised that he didn't get snapped up, and we are going to talk about this a little bit later on. Is he underrated?
Yeah, I mean, no, when he first came, everyone kind of went, wow, Watford, because they signed him when they were in the Premier League, and everyone kind of went, oh, we've heard of him, he's a good player. And then he did look good that first season. He's still quite young. He did well in the Championship. Everyone was still surprised that he was down there. And I think he might have been a bit surprised himself as to how quite difficult that league is, because he looks better now that he's in the Premier League again. So yeah, I think he definitely should be at a bigger club. And I think, the top four clubs will be sniffing around him when Watford inevitably don't do too well.
The issue I have with him is he's all right, he's got some talent to him, but he will get. I don't think he'll go top four. I think he'll potentially go to a top 10, a top 10 club. But I think he'll just be left on the bench. I think he'll be forgotten about. I think he'll be one of those players that, unless he has an absolute worldie of a season, which again, is he in the right team for it? Will he get forgotten about if he just goes to, for example, Mahrez went to Man City after having a wonderful season at Leicester. Now he's forced his way into the squad, arguably irreplaceable now. He's just that good. But you could quite easily have seen him getting lost throughout the ranks, go on loan, forgotten about from the Premier League altogether. Would that happen to Sarr?
It's a good point. Yeah, I was thinking about this with Mahrez. I sometimes think, could your career have been a lot better? But I remember after they won the league, Leicester, Mahrez started to slow down a lot in that Leicester team. And if he hadn't gone to Man City, it might have slowed down even more. So it's hard to cover when you haven't got the facts in front of you. Things might go differently for players. But I mean, if you put Sarr into Man City, and give him 60 minutes. I mean, they were shocking this weekend, but if he had 60 minutes in a Man City team against Norwich at home, he's probably going to score a hat-trick and look amazing.
I mean, let's be honest, that's one player that they do not need at the moment is another bloody winger. But,
oh, wow.
Let's move away from that one. Newcastle Leeds, 1-1. Gutted, obviously, from my side of things, because we looked better than them for great spells of the game. And it was a very, very interesting goal from Rafinha. I did see it, and I saw Saint-Maximin's goal as well. And to be fair, two great goals, two great players. How they've not been, how Saint-Maximin, because he's been in the Premier League longer than Rafinha, how he's not been snapped up by I'm going to probably disrespect a few people, a bigger club than Newcastle. It is surprising. One of those players you do expect to go somewhere, whether that was overseas to a big club, or for one of our big clubs to got him. But it was a great game. Assists from Joel Linton and Patrick Bamford. So all in all, not bad.
Yeah, I enjoyed the game. It was Friday. I got a few beers out. I've just finished work, so I was happy to sit down and watch it. And yeah, I mean, Saint-Maximin and Rafinha just ran the show. Two of the best wingers outside of the top six. Saint-Maximin is absolutely incredible. When that Newcastle team looks like it's not going to be doing anything, he just creates something out of nothing. That his goal was almost like the Aguero goal against QPR. It was just pass player. And every time I had Ayling in my fantasy team, and every time Saint-Maximin was on the ball, I was just like, oh, here goes this clean sheet. And it was a matter of when, not how. And he could have scored more. He could have got an assist. I think it was Matt Ritchie who hit the post. And then Rafinha looked great. And that Rodrigo dummy for his goal shouldn't go unmentioned, because it was very clever and it stumped Carl Darlow. And Rafinha just looked, big time. And Rafinha just looked awesome on the ball. Every time he got the ball, cutting in on that left. He took it around a few players as well. He probably should have released it a bit quicker, but that'll come as well. And Rafinha and Saint-Maximin, both still young, and both have got a lot of room to improve. And I think they'll both get snapped up by big clubs in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the only thing that I've got that's a bit of an issue with Leeds at the moment is we get stumped when, and I'm not saying that Newcastle did, but when teams park the bus, we really do struggle. Patrick Bamford, can't slag him off at all. He's a great goal scorer and obviously proved his worth in the Premier League last year with 17 goals. But we need another striker to really challenge him, make him better in that squad, because, I think there's a level of, I'm not going to say laziness to his game at times, but because he's such a good player, but we need somebody else that's just another focal point in the team, another great striker to be able to just, get balls over to him for. But anyway, we need to move on. Spurs, well, this is the last game of today, wasn't it? Spurs 0, Chelsea 3. Great game from Chelsea, efficient, clinical. It should have been 6 or 7, quite honestly. The amount of chances that Chelsea had, Spurs were just appalling once again. Tactics not working. Goals from Thiago Silva and N'Golo Kante and Rudiger. Here's one for you though. Is Rudiger an underrated player?
Oh, absolutely. He's a European champion. He's their whole defence is, it's not even underrated. I think everyone knows how good their team is now. And I think I saw the first half, it was very lacklustre from Chelsea, and Spurs came out straight on the attack, straight on the press. And I kind of thought, well, is this what teams are doing now against Chelsea? Are they looking to just press them and see what they can do and push them back rather than let them have the ball? Because I saw Aston Villa do it the other week, and Aston Villa lost 3-0 to Chelsea, so it was the same scoreline. And I think that's Chelsea's kind of way of just clicking their fingers in the second half, and they just absolutely mauled them. And Spurs looked like they'd given up towards the end, but Chelsea looks quality. They're winning the league. I said it from the start. They're winning the league. I wouldn't be surprised if they won the Champions League. They're just a complete team, and even Lukaku didn't get on the score sheet today. It was Silva, Kante, and Rudiger, which are just not players you'd expect to score. They had Werner come off the bench. They could afford to take Mount and Havertz off, who just weren't having that much of a good game, to bring on the likes of Werner. Do you know what I mean? And keep Lukaku on. They've just got a lot of depth. And yeah, they're just the best team in the league for me. The other game today was Brighton-Leicester, which was 2-1 to Brighton, by the way, but we didn't watch that. Neither of us did. No. So I just wanted to say how surprising it is that Brighton are doing so well and how poor Leicester are doing. That's all I've got to say on that game.
They've really followed on from last year, it's fair to say. They're currently sitting 4th for Brighton. On 12 points. I mean, they're only 1 point behind United, Liverpool and Chelsea. Albeit the goal difference is significantly different. But they're really having a good time at the moment. So Chelsea on 11 goals, Liverpool on 11 as well, United on 9, and then City, who sit in 5th, obviously with that draw not helping them, they have 10 as well. I mean, when City turn it on, they turn it on, undeniably so. But Chelsea and Liverpool and United, arguably, they're efficient teams, and they're just winning games at the moment. Okay, Young Boys is a bit of a different, but in the Premier League, it's working. Yeah,
definitely. I think Liverpool have had the easier run of fixtures between them and Chelsea. So I think Chelsea have got City next week, so we'll really see what the two teams are made out of then.
Chelsea will win that game.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think they'll win that game. And I think it'll be a bit of a stalemate until the second half, like the last few games have been for Chelsea. But it was just signified for me when Chelsea went to Anfield and had to play with 10 men for a whole half and they couldn't get broken down. I just think Chelsea have got it. I mean, I had Liverpool at 4th to start the season. Maybe they might jump up to 3rd or 2nd, but I just see Chelsea winning the league and maybe more.
Do you know what? I've tipped United to win the league just because I think they've just about got enough, and I think with the players that they've got, they're one of the best goal scorers in the history of the game. Well, technically the best goal scorer in the history of the game. He will. I think he's going to do some serious damage. If we're yet to really see what they're like against a top 6 team or a top 4 team, so I think that'll be an interesting one. But let's move on to another subject matter, and this is one for the listeners. We wanted people to rank the wingers outside the top 6. We've got 4 wingers for you. And Callum, I want to throw this one at you. We've got Rafinha, obviously at Leeds. Saint-Maximin. I've just said the same name twice there. Never mind. Saint-Maximin, 3rd time lucky, who plays obviously for Newcastle, the two of them had great weeks this week. Traore, of course, for Wolves, and Sarr at Watford. Who is the best winger out of that bunch? Because they're all fantastic wingers. They prove themselves so well.
They are, yeah. I think I can give a top 4 in order, and I think I've got reason for it as well. So I'm going to put Sarr at the bottom just because of that kind of need to see more from him, but I think he is incredible and he's outdoing Watford. We've discussed him. He's had his championship time, which wasn't so impressive, but he's looking good again in the Premier League. He's got a bit of everything. And then I'd have Traore at third based on his end products. When he got the ball the other day against Brentford, every time he got the ball, it looked like something was going to happen. It's kind of like that same Maximan thing where you think something's going to happen. He's opening the game up. He's going to lace one off, and then he'll just put a cross in that goes over everyone's head, or he'll miss kick it and he'll go out for a goal kick. He's just not got the end product. And for years we've been saying he's got everything. That end product will come, and it's still not come, but he's still one that makes something happen in the game for Wolves. Second, I'd have, and it's quite close, but I'd have Rafinha. I think he's got everything. He's got everything that he needs. He's got pace, he's got agility, he knows where the goal is, he can lay players off, he makes things happen all the time. But Saint-Maximin for me has all that, but there's an inevitability to Saint-Maximin. You just know that he's going to influence the game no matter what. Like, even if Newcastle are doing poorly, he'll score a goal, he'll lay off an assist, he'll get something. And he did that. He scored. He was involved in the goal that Newcastle scored against United, even though they got beat badly. He scored that goal against Leeds. He will be involved in almost everything that Newcastle do, and I think he's one of the best wingers in the league, and he definitely deserves to be looked at by the likes of Liverpool, City, Chelsea and Man United, really.
I do think, if I'm being honest, that if Liverpool were to get rid of Salah, a cheap option for them would be to go for him, to tell you the truth. Salah would be absolutely, we're going to make some money on him if he was to go to Madrid, Barcelona. You can see him going away from the Premier League and just trying his craft somewhere else. But I do think that would be a cheaper. Why bother? I mean, they've been linked with Mbappe for a while, of Liverpool. Whether that's going to happen, I don't think. Well, nobody knows, but it feels like it could do. But I think that's pretty certain to go. He's pretty certain to go to Real Madrid. Which other wingers would you really look at? Saint-Maximin knows the Premier League. Yes, he's not the big name, but he's a big fish in a small pond when it comes to the players at Newcastle.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he's the best one out there. And imagine if Mane and Salah started to move on early 30s and started to look a bit lackluster, and then you just brought in Rafinha and Saint-Maximin. Your strikers.
Let's not talk about Rafinha in the same sentence as moving away from Leeds. All right, it's inevitable, because the only thing that keeps, I think, a lot of players at Leeds is the fact that we've got such an amazing style of football these days, and also a world-class coach.
Yeah, and I think that's something Newcastle are crying out for as well, that style of play. I think I saw a few interviews from them on the Friday Night Football, and they were saying they like kind of expect to be in that bottom half. They don't expect to be fighting for Europe. Yeah. But they just want to watch entertaining, exciting football, and they're not getting that with Steve Bruce. So if they did get a manager that was excited, Bielsa, Saint-Maximin would thrive. But put Saint-Maximin in a big team with big players and a manager that can do that as well, then he'll be one of the best players in the league, I think.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that when Jota moved to Liverpool, it definitely raised a few eyebrows. But at the same time, last season he had a brilliant season, and you kind of expected that to flow into this season as well. And it just happens occasionally, big players from not small teams, but you know what I mean, from teams that are lower down the league, will move to big clubs, and all of a sudden they can turn it on. They get the quality that they needed,
Yeah, once they're surrounded with quality, then they just become quality. And if they've got that sort of potential, then they will turn it on. I was looking at Jota and Ruben Neves when they were in the Championship, and they had that Wolves model with the Portuguese kind of thing. Forest tried to copy a few seasons after, and when Jota and Neves were coming through at Wolves, I thought I had them both in my fantasy team for their first season in the Premier League. And then Jota was kind of in and out. So when he moved to Liverpool, I knew that he had the potential, and obviously they've unlocked it quite quickly. He's been a bit quiet for the last few games, but we know what he's capable of.
Of course.
So yeah.
No, I think that's it's a very fair point, but I think we need to do a few more of these, to be honest with you. Let's compare a few of the players that people might not typically have heard of that do influence games, because there are loads out there. Quite simply, I mean, we were talking about one of the Palace players last week who assisted.
Conor Gallagher.
I thought it was something like that. And it was just one of those times where you think to yourself, we bang on about Ronaldo, we bang on about so many other players. There are so many other players that are in the Premier League bubble that are underrated. So we'll do that a bit more. Right then, I think we'll call it quits there today. But thank you everybody for listening. It's quite a long one, so I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to us, whether it's in a car, on a walk, whatever it might be, sat at home, working, whatever. Thank you so much for listening to Footy Rambles. Till next time.